In other news, Singapore Airlines has let go about half of its cadet pilots and cabin crew trainees, and the rest will have to leave after their training is completed. There are more than 400 staff at various stages of training.
Well, this is part of SIA's downsizing of its workforce. If you recall, the SIA group said last week that it would cut around 4,300 positions, including retrenching about 2,400 staff.
So from the start of this week, retrenched workers started receiving their pink slips. Those affected will continue to receive their salaries until December 15th and will also retain their medical and other benefits until then.
Well, traineeships and SIA's retrenchment exercise. We'll discuss these two topics with news editor at the Straits Times, Karamjit Kaur. Welcome back to the show. So when you were last on, you spoke about how SIA conducts itself during this retrenchment exercise and whether or not it will make a difference for its staff. You said that if you have to let go of people, do it in a dignified way. So how has SIA fared so far, you think?
Right. Yes, indeed, I did say that. Since then, SIA has started its retrenchment exercise. Started on Monday. That's when the first few cabin crew and other staff got their pink slips. When you want to look at how SIA has fared so far, let's look at two different levels. One is to look at the retrenchment benefits. What sort of package SIA is offering staff that are being retrenched. And we've reported on some of the details. If you've had 2 years of service within the airline, it's 1 month of pay for every year of service, capped at 25 months. If you look at the guidelines that the Ministry of Manpower has, it's anything between 2 weeks to a month. So they're fair to say that SIA is on the higher end of that spectrum. But significant to point out, I think that apart from that, SIA has also confirmed that although staff are being retrenched, they will remain on the payroll until December 15th. They will continue to be paid until then, as well as enjoy health and other benefits that the airline provides. The other thing that SIA has done is that they will also pay the retrenched staff a salary in lieu of the usual notice period. So that can range from a month to up to 3 months, depending on the sort of contract that they have. So that's as far as benefits are concerned. The other part of this really is how the news is being told to staff affected. And again, we've done reports on this. So they've arranged for taxis, for example, to pick staff up from their homes or wherever they are to the SIA training center where the retrenchment exercise is being done. For cabin crew, when they come in, there's a briefing with the head of cabin crew. After that, they go into individual briefings where they are explained, where they are informed about the terms of the retrenchment, what sort of package they have, what sort of benefits. There are counsellors on site, in the event that some sort of counselling is needed. There are union leaders there as well. And once that is done, again, there is transport to take them back to their homes or wherever it is that they would like to go to. So I think if you look at the whole range, I think fair to say that SIA is doing it correctly and in the right way.
Now, the airline has let go of about half of its cadet pilots and cabin crew trainees, while the rest will have to leave after their training is completed. When that happens, though, where will these pilots go and what can they do?
So I think really when you look at cadet pilots, for example, it's the same sort of question that every retrenched worker is asking himself or herself, right? There's very little flying, there's no employment within the airline. So it's a matter of looking at your skills set, looking at what sort of interests you have, and then they just have to look for opportunities elsewhere. These are quite young cadet pilots. Most of them are in their early 20s. They may decide to just sort of just chill for a bit, or maybe do some courses and hope that things sort of recover in the next 2 to 3 years or so. SIA has given a commitment of sorts that when things do recover to pre-COVID levels, they are very much open to hiring these cadet pilots, and that makes sense because it's not cheap. to train a pilot, we're looking at about $250,000. When we move to cabin crew, I think for them, there is quite a bit of demand for the sort of skills that they have. So, whether it's healthcare, for example, we've done stories of Kutek Puat Hospital, for example, that has taken in quite a number of SIA cabin crew for customer fronting sort of positions in healthcare. There are some schools that have taken them in as well. So for the cabin crew, you would imagine that the majority of them would probably go into customer facing sectors and industries.
Right. Well, Karam, when you were previously on the show last Friday, we also talked about how domestic flights isn't possible for our national carrier. The Straits Times also reported last week that SIA is looking to launch flights to nowhere for domestic passengers. Since then, though, environmental groups have expressed concern about the unnecessary impact on the environment. So what are your thoughts on this campaign?
So this, I think it's very interesting. During a crisis, you would imagine that all companies, SIA and others, you want to think of everything and anything, to try and sort of prop up the business. The whole idea is to think out of the box. So I think it is in that context that we talked about the possibility that flights to nowhere may be mounted. Very interesting, the sort of comeback from the environmentalists. The reactions have been quite strong. Why do you want to do this? Because we're talking about pollution and all that. But I think for me, what's more interesting is that it's not just them sort of hitting, hard at SIA. It's they actually have come up with a lot of suggestions. So there was an online post portal that was created, and to date, the last time I checked, there was something like 800 odd, comments with all kinds of suggestions. So they are, suggesting, for example, why don't you just, open up your flight, for example, for tours, do cockpit tours, or have people sort of experience that SIA service, allow them to have meals, while sitting in business class, for example, allow them to sort of experience the suites. So I think it's very heartening, and I think SIA should be very heartened that people are so concerned and actually genuinely want to offer some ideas for SIA. At the end of the day, is this going to make a difference as far as the bottom line is concerned? No. I mean, how much can you possibly charge for these tours anyway? But I think good for SIA to consider some of these ideas quite seriously, because at the end of the day, you're not going to be able to fly as far as leisure travel is concerned. So from the marketing perspective, if you look at it, this provides an opportunity for SIA to sort of allow more people to experience that SIA service, while grounded. And who knows, sitting in business class or in the suites, it might inspire people to one day sort of say, oh, when flying resumes again, I must, fly SQ, and I must, sit in business class. So from a marketing, branding perspective, I don't think it's a big idea. Will it move the needle as far as revenue is concerned? Very, very unlikely.
All right. It still remains to be seen what kind of suggestions, that SIA will take. Well, thank you so much, Karan, for joining us again. Always a pleasure to speak with you. That was Karamjit Kaur, the Straits Times news editor.